I have the honor of introducing our next speaker, Daniel Garza, who's going to talk to us about the evolving landscape as it has to do with Latinos and winning in 2024, because winning is key to all this. All this is just a lot of talk if we don't win in 2024. So let me tell you something. Let me introduce you to my wife, Stephanie Watkins. She is the love of my life and my best friend, and she's been my wife for the last 49 years. Come stand with me, honey. Come stand with me. Thank you. You can stand with me. So let me tell you about Daniel. Daniel actually worked with our oldest daughter. Both of us worked, I worked for a U.S. Senator named Dan Quayle some years ago. Great U.S. Senator and great Vice President of the United States. And then I worked in the White House for President Bush. My wife was an appointee for both Presidents Bush, first at the Department of Education, and then under President George W. Bush, she was appointed to be the regional administrator of the SBA. And our oldest daughter, Tiffany, followed us into public service and political life and served at the Republican National Committee, and then went to work in the White House for President Bush, and before coming back to work years later at the RNC for Reince Priebus. But she worked with Mr. Garza in the same office, in the Office of Public Liaison, the office that I worked in as well when I was a staffer at the White House some years ago. But listen to his background. He's born in the Central Valley of California. He migrated with his family annually from their ancestral hometown of Garza Gonzalez in Nuevo Leon, Mexico, throughout California, Nebraska, and Washington State, following the crop season as farm workers. He did that until he was 19 years old. He followed with his family, going from state to state, working in the farm industry. And what an amazing career he's had. He began his career in public service as a congressional staff assistant for Congressman Hastings, was later elected as a city councilman for the city of Pennish, Washington in '96. In 2001, he was tapped by the Bush administration to serve as the Deputy Director of External and Intergovernmental Relations Affairs in the Office of the Secretary at the Department of Interior. Then he moved over to the White House in 2004, and was appointed as the Associate Director of the Office of Public Liaison in the White House. In 2007, he joined Univision to host and co-produce Agenda Washington, a weekly Spanish-language news talk show covering the issues impacting the U.S. Hispanic community. He was designated as one of Washington, D.C.'s influentials by Congressional Quarterly magazine in 2018 and 19, and was named one of the 50 most influential voices in Washington, D.C. by the National Journal. He serves as the president of the LIBRE initiative and resides in Mission, Texas with his wife and 3 children. Please welcome Daniel Garza.
Thank you so much. It was a high honor to work with Tiffany at the Office of Public Liaison at the White House during my time there. Really one of the most memorable times of my life, working for George W. Bush. This is actually my second opportunity that I've had to address this conference, and it's a privilege to be invited back. Today, 75% of Americans think the country is headed in the wrong direction, according to a recent poll. Americans have essentially 2 competing visions to choose from, 2 directions that will define the future of our country, of who we are to become. On the one hand, there is the paradigm of power, a top-down approach where the elite control your behavior, those who believe that for their side to win, the other side must lose. For their side to get ahead, others must stay behind. The connected, the politically favored, and those who hold the levers of this system get favored status. But others are made to submit under the thumb of the coercive machine of an all-powerful government. And on the other hand, there is the paradigm of empowerment. America is a place where everyone can succeed, a bottom-up approach where people are trusted to innovate, trade, and benefit from a free market system that rewards competition, risk-taking, and customer service, where we all rise by serving each other and unleashing innovation in a society of mutual benefit. So it's either empowerment or power. Will it be all of us or us versus them? And today, more than any other day, the stakes for our nation couldn't be any higher. Politicians greenlight massive spikes in government spending and borrowing as we grow frustrated over the nation's debt continuously ballooning. Latinos especially are experiencing real economic pain as the result of inflation. And we are all watching our individual liberties erode. And it is happening at an unprecedented pace. Speech, religion, privacy, equal under the law, and other areas are eroding. Elected leaders are increasingly replacing Judeo-Christian traditions for a failed secular dogma lacking any moral clarity. We are acquiescing to policies bent on redistributing earned wealth over policies that focus on redistributing knowledge and opportunity. As you've heard in today's presentations, our free enterprise system is being stifled by state and federal bureaucracies fixated on depriving citizens and businesses of their ability to make entrepreneurial decisions. And more, with maybe a tepid resistance on social media by a lot of us, we are casually ceding our liberties and freedoms enshrined in our founding charters for a centralized, all-powerful government controlled by power-hungry politicians. Every rule, every law, every mandate and regulation imposed by politicians and unelected bureaucrats are really actions by the state meant to control your behavior. They're meant to control your behavior. And statists won't stop until they control the market, the family, the church, and other institutions that made America great. We are on the road to becoming entirely dependent on an all-powerful state controlled by a ruling elite. Folks, a pernicious endgame is afoot here. As the power and control and wealth of government grows, there is a proportionate diminishment of power, control, and wealth in the life of the individual. I don't need to tell you, total submission is the goal. We cannot be the generation that allowed our American principles to diminish. We must make a stand and fight for freedom and empowerment where we all rise while we still can. It is, after all, freedom that drives progress. As Robert F. Kennedy said, government by the consent of the governed is, as in our Constitution, must be limited in its power to act against its people, so that there may be no interference with the right to worship, but also no interference with the security of the home, no arbitrary imposition of pains or penalties on an ordinary citizen by officials high or low, no restriction on the freedom of men to seek education or to seek work or opportunity of any kind, so that each man may become all that he is capable of becoming. It will always be true. Government that governs least governs best. So why do I mention this? Why start with the threats to freedom when I'm here to discuss the Latino vote? Because undermining freedom and stifling opportunity matters to all Americans, and winning the Latino vote requires champions who will defend American principles. Latinos fled top-down governments. They came to America for want of opportunity, for want of American-style freedom. They are willing to work hard and earn the American dream. Instead, they are being sold a rehash of the government model that destroyed their countries of origin. A limited government should matter deeply to each and every American. And everyone in this room knows that one side of the political divide is working diligently to expand government, not restrain it. They have imposed an agenda on minority communities not caring what our concerns are or what our priorities are. I don't know about you, but I've never heard Latinos in my community or anyone in my family ever mention the need to eliminate cheap and reliable energy sources, spike our utility bills, pile on more costs in the name of their sacred crusade to shove a green agenda down our throats. But listening to the extremist progressives in the professional liberal Latino political class, you would think that we Latinos are all in on destroying our energy future. And the vast majority of Latinos reject this insanity. Democrats have become the party of socialist university professors, extremist activists who block traffic to keep working people from getting to their jobs on time, who fight against energy abundance. They are keeping parents from choosing the education that they want for their children when school choice is the best equalizer of opportunity. And Democrats are the party of heavy taxes, anti-business regulations, and soft on crime, indifferent to the border crisis. And they don't bat an eye in dividing the country with a race baiting, branding anyone who doesn't agree with them as fascist or Nazis even. They are the party that refuses to hold certain communities to account, who refuse to insist these groups act morally. They are forgiven of Hamas terrorism, of illegal border crossings at the border, ignore vandalizing of property by left-wing extremist activist protesters. And they groom DAs to be soft on violent urban crime. Yet to their shock, Democrats never imagined that Black and Hispanic voters would abandon them. As John Tillman wrote in an op-ed this week on USA Today, Democrats have tried to drive turnout among their coalition by focusing on divisive issues. For Black and Hispanic voters, Democrats have emphasized grievance politics, warning about systemic racism and anti-immigrant sentiment. And Democrats are guaranteed to double down on this approach between now and November, hoping to lure back more minority voters. But liberal leaders should instead ask why so many Black and Hispanic voters have turned rightward in the first place. And the answer is simple. The Democratic Party is ignoring the issues that we care about the most. So more and more Latinos are saying, this is not my party anymore. A recent poll found 47% of Hispanics calling themselves Democrats and 35% identifying as Republican, compared to 2021, when 57% of Hispanics identified as Democrats and only 26% said they were Republican. 2012, Obama earned 71% of the Latino vote. 2018, Hillary got 66%. 2020, Biden down to 59%. 8 Latino Republicans flipped 8 congressional seats from blue to red in 2022. So why is the GOP making gains with Latinos? Well, it's pain. Unnecessary economic pain brought on by Biden's thick-headed policies. Biden's reckless spending has made the cost of living 20% more expensive across the board and made home ownership almost impossible for Latinos. Biden's anti-energy agenda that has made us recklessly dependent on foreign oil and his negligence on border security and foreign affairs have made America dangerously less safer. Turns out all issues are Latino issues. But there are other reasons. Unions have been losing influence, diminishing their capability to turn out members. Youth vote has been trending conservative. An overwhelming majority, 65% of 18 to 29-year-olds identifying themselves as moderate to conservative. 65%. Only 13% of boys identified as liberal or very liberal. And keep in mind, 1 million Latinos turn 18 every year, and over 85% of them US born. 22% of Latinos will be voting in their first presidential election this year. 22% of us, young, with no loyalty to any party. GOP elected leaders and right-leaning partisan voices have become much more familiar with the Latino community. They're connecting better. And Latinos are finding out that GOP candidates are much better aligned on Latino policy priorities, the economy, on jobs, on inflation. I must also add, data-driven turnout capabilities of Latinos are maturing to a place of such significant size that it is improving turnout of the electorate in favor of our policy champions are good candidates and impacting the results. Over the last 12 years, LIBRE, for example, has been amassing a Latino voter database that now has 7 million Latinos in just 13 states that we've identified as either aligned or swing voters. And you can bet it's Latinos themselves who are mobilizing and turning out Latinos. Here's some insight. Winning over voters begins with 2 fundamental sentiments each candidate needs to convey, and maybe even a party. Number 1, that you care. Number 2, that your ideas are superior. Because if somebody thinks that you don't care about them, they don't care what you have to say. But if you show up, if you do the work, okay, I'm listening, what do you got? And that's where you make your case. You show you care by showing up and connecting with them one-on-one with them on issues that they care about, not imposing an agenda like the liberal left likes to do. Listening to their priorities and not merely imposing your own agenda on them will assure you gain their attention. Then you make your case and you tell them how we will write the next chapter of America's story together. America is a remarkable story of achievement, of conquest, and about the resiliency and the grit of its broad diversity of people. Oddly, it's an unprecedented level of progress many take for granted, like it was inevitable. a serendipitous series of events that made us prosperous. But of course it wasn't. From the very beginning, this nation was blessed with bold and visionary leaders, brilliant minds who gifted the world with the greatest experiment in governance ever contrived by man. One based on individual freedoms and limited government, a democratic republic, free markets, American principles that made our prosperity possible. But for that to continue, we need to defend America's founding principles. Each one of us requires a quality education. Each one of us needs a helping hand to overcome the barriers we face every day. We have seen that good happens when you empower people. And the GOP must connect on policies that sustain an all-important premise. America must continue to be, as the senator from my state of Texas says, that country where anyone from anywhere with nothing can achieve anything. America is, most of all, a story of man's struggle for freedom, stated forcefully and unequivocally one cold January day by President John F. Kennedy. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, and oppose any foe in order to assure the survival and success of liberty. And that's the thing about the story of America, that it's a story that continues to be written. And now the story is ours to write. How will we make our mark? Empowering people or impose an all-powerful government over them? The Latino community is ready to choose empowerment and good candidates who also choose empowerment, to work united with all of you for freedom, because freedom drives progress. God bless.